The silent cry, the morning sun of Kepler 442b, painted the crystal domes of Research Station Harmony in shades of gold and amber. Dr. Lyra Moonwhisper extended all four of her delicate arms to tend the flowering vines that spiraled up the walls of the botanical laboratory. Her species, the Zephyrians, were known throughout the galaxy as the gentlest of beings. Their pale blue skin seemed to glow with an inner light, and their large silver eyes held centuries of wisdom and compassion. Lyra had spent the last 3 years on this remote world, studying the unique plant life that could potentially cure diseases affecting dozens of species across the galaxy. The Zephyrians had no military, no weapons, no concept of warfare. They were healers, scholars, and nurturers who dedicated their lives to preserving and protecting life in all its forms. The research station housed 48 Zephyrians, all brilliant minds working on various projects that would benefit the greater galactic community. They had discovered treatments for the wasting disease that plagued the Centauri colonies, developed vaccines for the plague that threatened the outer rim worlds, and were close to a breakthrough in regenerative medicine that could save millions of lives. Dr. Cale Starweaver, the station's eldest researcher, approached Lyra with his usual gentle smile. His silver hair reflected the morning light as he moved with the graceful steps characteristic of their species. "The morning blooms are particularly beautiful today," he observed, his voice carrying the musical quality that made Zephyrian speech sound like wind chimes. "They respond to the harmony we create here," Lyra replied, her own voice melodic and soothing. "When there is peace, life flourishes. It is the universal truth we have always known." Neither of them noticed the dark shapes moving through the system's outer asteroid belt. The Cracks horde had been tracking the research station for weeks, drawn by intelligence reports of valuable medical research and the promise of easy prey. The Cracks were everything the Zephyrians were not: brutal, savage, and driven by an insatiable hunger for violence and conquest. Warlord Grimfang Bloodclaw commanded the Cracks fleet from his massive dreadnought, the Bone Crusher. His reptilian features were scarred from countless battles, and his yellow eyes gleamed with predatory intelligence. The Cracks stood nearly 8 feet tall, with armored scales that could deflect most energy weapons and claws that could tear through steel. "Target acquired," hissed his second-in-command Sub-Warlord Razorcrest. "The prey things have no defenses, no weapons. This will be another easy harvest." Grimfang's lipless mouth curved into what might have been a smile on a less terrifying face. "Good. The medical research they possess will bring high prices on the black market. Their technology for healing will be worth more when we use it to keep our slave warriors alive longer." The Cracks had terrorized the galaxy for over 2 centuries. They were nomadic raiders who descended upon peaceful worlds like a plague of locusts, taking what they wanted and leaving only death and destruction in their wake. No military force had ever been able to stop them completely, and their reputation for brutality was legendary. As the Cracks fleet approached Kepler 442b, the first sign of trouble came from the station's automated early warning systems. Dr. Lyra looked up from her plants as gentle chimes began to sound throughout the facility, her large eyes filled with confusion as she had never heard these particular tones before. "What is that sound?" asked young Dr. Zena Lightblossom, the station's newest researcher. She was barely past her first century, which made her little, more than a child by Zephyrian standards. Dr. Cale's expression grew troubled as he consulted his datapad. "It appears to be our perimeter sensors. They are detecting incoming vessels." The chimes grew more urgent, and suddenly the station's communication systems crackled to life with panicked voices from the orbital monitoring post. "Research Station. Harmony. This is Orbital Platform 7. We have multiple unidentified ships approaching at high speed. They are not responding to our communications, and... oh no. Oh no! They're firing. They're firing on us." The transmission cut to static, and through the crystal domes of the research station, the Zephyrians could see bright flashes of light in the space above their world. The orbital platform, home to 12 more of their people, was being destroyed. Dr. Cale's hands trembled as he activated the station's emergency protocols. "All researchers to the underground laboratories immediately. This is not a drill, we are under attack." The Zephyrians moved with surprising speed despite their shock. They had drilled for natural disasters like earthquakes and storms, but never for this. The concept of beings who would attack a peaceful research station was almost beyond their comprehension. As they descended into the underground biolabs, the first Crax dropships screamed through the atmosphere like falling meteors. The ships were black and angular, designed to strike fear into the hearts of their victims. They landed with thunderous impacts that shook the ground and sent clouds of dust and debris into the air. From her position in the underground command center, Dr. Lyra watched the surface monitors with growing horror. The Crax warriors that emerged from the dropships were nightmares made real. They moved with predatory grace, their weapons already firing at anything that moved. "By the light of the ancient stars," whispered Dr. Kale, his voice barely audible. "What are these creatures?" The Crax began their systematic destruction of the research station. They blasted through the crystal domes with explosive charges, and the sound of shattering glass echoed through the underground chambers like breaking hearts. Years of careful research, irreplaceable specimens, and delicate equipment were being destroyed in minutes. Dr. Lyra's 4 hands worked frantically at the communication console, trying to send out a distress signal. "Mayday, Mayday. This is research. Station Harmony on Kepler 442b. We are under attack by unknown hostile forces. 48 Zephyrian researchers are trapped underground. We have no weapons, no defenses. Please, anyone who receives this message, we need immediate assistance." The message went out on all galactic emergency frequencies, but Lyra knew the bitter truth. The nearest Galactic Federation patrol was 3 days away. The Zephyrian homeworld's small defense fleet was even farther. By the time anyone could mount a rescue mission, they would all be dead. Above them, the Crax were methodically hunting down any Zephyrians who had not made it to the underground shelters. The gentle researchers had no experience with violence, no instinct for hiding or fighting. They were easily captured or killed by the savage warriors. Young Dr. Zena was crying softly, her tears shimmering like liquid starlight. "Why are they doing this to us? We have never hurt anyone. We only want to heal and help." Dr. Kale placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. "There are species in this galaxy that do not understand our ways, child. They see gentleness as weakness, compassion as foolishness, but we must not let their darkness dim our light." The sound of explosions grew closer as the Crax began working their way through the station's lower levels. They had portable plasma cutters and heavy explosives, tools designed for breaking through military fortifications. The research station's civilian barriers would not hold them for long. Dr. Lyra continued broadcasting her distress signal, adding details about their situation and their research. "We were on the verge of a breakthrough in neural regeneration therapy. Our work could help millions of beings across the galaxy. Please, someone must hear this. We cannot let this knowledge die with us." Sub-Warlord Razorcrest led the assault on the underground levels. His scanner showed heat signatures clustered in the deepest part of the facility. "Prey things are hiding in the deep burrows," he reported to Grimfang. "They have sealed the passages, but we will break through within the hour." "Good," Grimfang replied from his ship. "Take some alive for questioning. Their medical knowledge may be useful before we sell it to the highest bidder." In the underground laboratory, the Zephyrians could hear the sound of cutting tools working through the reinforced doors. Dr. Lyra looked around at her fellow researchers, these gentle souls who had devoted their lives to healing and learning. They were huddled together like frightened children, their large eyes reflecting the dim emergency lighting. "My friends," Dr. Kale said softly, his voice carrying the authority of his advanced age. "We may not survive this day, but our work will live on. The knowledge we have gained, the lives we have saved, the hope we have brought to the galaxy, these things are eternal." Dr. Lyra nodded, her 4 hands still working at the communication console. "I will keep broadcasting until the very end. Perhaps our sacrifice will warn other peaceful worlds about these monsters." The cutting sounds grew louder, and sparks began to shower down from the sealed doorway. The Crax were almost through. The Zephyrians gathered closer together, drawing comfort from each other's presence in what they knew were their final moments. But something unexpected was happening in the vast emptiness of space. Dr. Lyra's distress signal had traveled far beyond the local star systems. It had reached worlds she had never heard of, species she had never encountered. Most importantly, it had reached a small blue-green world in an obscure corner of the galaxy. The message had been received by beings who understood what it meant when innocent people cried out for help. Beings who had been forged in the crucible of a world so dangerous that simply surviving childhood was an achievement. Beings who had never learned to ignore the cries of the helpless. The humans were coming. On Earth, in the underground command bunkers of the United Earth Defense Force, Admiral Marcus Chen read the intercepted distress signal with growing anger. The 40-year-old officer had served in 3 interstellar conflicts and had seen enough suffering to last several lifetimes. His scarred face and steel-gray eyes spoke of battles fought and won against impossible odds. "Sir," said Lieutenant Commander Sarah Cross, his communications officer, "the signal is from a species called the Zephyrians. According to our galactic database, they're researchers and healers. No military capabilities at all." Admiral Chen's jaw tightened. "How long until our nearest ships can reach them?" 12 hours at maximum burn, sir, but the attackers are identified as the Cracks Horde. They don't usually leave survivors. The Admiral stood up slowly, his decision already made. "Signal all fleet commanders. We're implementing Protocol 7. Every available ship, every available crew. I want our entire Space Navy ready to jump within the hour." Lieutenant Commander Cross's eyes widened. Protocol 7 had never been used before. It meant mobilizing humanity's entire interstellar military force for a single mission. "Sir, that's over 300 ships. For a species we've never even met?" Admiral Chen's voice was cold as space itself. "They asked for help, Commander. That's all I need to know." Back on Kepler 442b, the Cracks finally broke through the last barrier. The sealed door exploded inward in a shower of sparks and molten metal. Sub-Warlord Razorcrest stepped through the breach, his massive form silhouetted against the emergency lighting. The Zephyrians pressed back against the far wall of the laboratory, their gentle faces filled with terror. Dr. Lyra stood in front. Of the others, her forearms spread wide in a futile gesture of protection. "Stay back," she said, her musical voice trembling but determined. "We are healers, not warriors. We mean no harm to anyone." Razorcrest laughed, a sound like grinding stone. "Harm? You pray things could not harm anything if you tried. You are weak, soft, useless, except for the knowledge in your heads." More Cracks warriors entered the laboratory, their weapons trained on the helpless researchers. Dr. Lyra looked at her communication console one last time, hoping against hope that someone, somewhere, had heard their plea. The distress signal was still broadcasting into the void, carrying the last, desperate hope of a dying research station, but unknown to the Cracks, that signal had already triggered something they had never encountered before. Humanity was coming, and they were bringing everything they had. The Deathworld response. In the depths of space, 300 human warships dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation. The sight was unprecedented in galactic history. An entire civilization's military might mobilized for a single rescue mission. At the center of the formation, Admiral Marcus Chen stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution, humanity's newest and most powerful dreadnought. "Contact," reported Sensor Operator Kim. 157 Cracks vessels in orbit around Kepler 442b. They've deployed in a standard raiding formation around the planet. Admiral Chen studied the tactical display with the cold precision of a predator analyzing its prey. The Cracks had made their first mistake by attacking innocents. Their second mistake was not retreating when they had the chance. "Signal from the surface, sir," Communications Officer Torres announced. "The distress beacon is still active. Someone down there is still alive." Chen's expression hardened. "Captain Vasquez, take your battle group and eliminate the orbital defenses. Commander Thompson, prepare your Marines for planetary assault. I want those researchers rescued and every single Cracks either dead or running for their lives." Captain Elena Vasquez commanded the fast attack squadron from her ship, the UES Stormhawk. The 35-year-old officer had earned her nickname, Stormbreaker, during the Proxima conflict, where she had single-handedly destroyed an entire pirate fleet. Her ship and crew specialized in quick, devastating strikes against superior numbers. "All ships, this is Stormbreaker," she announced over the squadron frequency. "These things have been terrorizing peaceful species for 2 centuries. Today, they learn what happens when they mess with someone under human protection, the cracks." Were confident in their numerical superiority until the human ships opened fire. Earth-built weapons were different from anything else in the galaxy. While other species had developed precise, efficient energy weapons, humans had perfected the art of overwhelming destructive force. The UES Stormhawk's main guns fired concentrated plasma bursts that could punch through a kilometer of solid rock. When they struck the first Cracks cruiser, the entire ship simply disintegrated in a ball of superheated gas. The Cracks had never seen weapons that powerful outside of planetary bombardment systems. "What are these creatures?" Warlord Grimfang snarled as his fleet's formations began to crumble under the human assault. "Their ships are smaller than ours, but their weapons—" His question was answered when the UES Retribution opened fire with its main battery. The massive dreadnought mounted weapons originally designed to crack open asteroids for mining operations. When those weapons hit Cracks warships, the results were spectacular and final. Commander Jake Thompson led the 1st Marine Assault Battalion aboard the UES Thunderstrike. The dropships were already loaded with his Marines, men and women who had trained in Earth's harshest environments. Thompson himself was a veteran of the Titan campaign, where human forces had fought in conditions that would have killed most alien species. "Listen up, Marines," Thompson announced over the unit comm. "Down there are 48 researchers who've spent their lives trying to heal people. Right now they're being hunted by monsters who think being peaceful makes you weak. We're going to show these Cracks just how wrong they are." The dropships launched from the Thunderstrike like falling hammers. They were designed to penetrate hostile atmospheres at speeds that would tear apart most alien craft. The Marines inside wore powered armor that could function in the vacuum of space or the crushing depths of Earth's oceans. On the surface of Kepler 442b, the Cracks were celebrating their easy victory. Most of the research station lay in ruins, and they had captured 37 Zephyrians alive for interrogation and sale. Sub-Warlord Razorcrest was personally overseeing the torture of Dr. Kale, trying to extract information about the medical research. "Tell us about the neural regeneration project, pray thing," Razorcrest hissed, his claws drawing thin lines of blue blood across the elderly Zephyrian's chest. "Where are the data files?" Dr. Kale's large silver eyes remained defiant despite his pain. "I will tell you nothing, monster. Our work was meant to heal, not to help creatures like you profit from suffering." Razorcrest raised his claw for another strike, but stopped when alarms began blaring throughout the Cracks encampment. Through the shattered dome of the research station, he could see streaks of fire descending from the sky like avenging angels. The human dropships hit the ground with impacts that registered on seismic sensors 50 kilometers away. The doors blew open before the ships had fully settled, and Marines poured out in a disciplined rush that spoke of thousands of hours of training. Sergeant Maria Santos was the first Marine to make contact with the enemy. She rounded a corner of the ruined research station and found herself face to face with a Cracks warrior. The alien was nearly 8 feet tall and covered in natural armor, but Santos had grown up in the slums of New Angeles, where survival meant being faster and meaner than anything trying to kill you. Her plasma rifle fired 3 times before the Cracks could raise its weapon. The alien's natural armor, which had protected it against conventional energy weapons for decades, proved useless against human military technology. The Cracks warrior collapsed, its yellow eyes wide with shock and disbelief. "Contact. Contact," Santos reported over the comm. "These things are big and tough, but they bleed just fine." Moving to secure the research facility. The battle that followed was unlike anything the Cracks had ever experienced. For 2 centuries, they had preyed upon peaceful species who had never learned to fight. The few military forces they had encountered were trained for defensive warfare, not the aggressive, overwhelming violence that was humanity's specialty. The Marines moved through the ruined research station like a force of nature. They had trained for urban combat in the bombed-out cities of Earth's war zones, practiced close-quarters fighting in the tunnels beneath Luna City, and learned to operate in hostile environments that ranged from the methane storms of Titan to The radiation-soaked surface of EO Commander Thompson led the assault on the underground laboratories where the surviving Zephyrians were being held. The cracks had set up a defensive perimeter around the entrance, confident that their superior size and natural weapons would protect them. They were wrong. Thompson's Marines used tactics that the cracks had never encountered. Instead of charging directly into the enemy position, they used the ruined research station structure to their advantage. Demolition charges opened new routes through the walls, while snipers picked off cracks guards from impossible angles. Private First Class David Kim crawled through a ventilation shaft that would have been too small for most alien species. Humans had evolved from creatures that lived in trees and caves, giving them advantages in tight spaces that their enemies couldn't match. He emerged behind the cracks' defensive line and called in precise coordinates for the artillery strike. The orbital bombardment came from the UES Thunderstrike's close support guns. The weapons were designed to provide precision fire support for ground operations, but their power was still devastating. The cracks' defensive position simply ceased to exist, leaving only a smoking crater and confused survivors. Sub-Warlord Razorcrest found himself alone with his captives as his warriors fled or died around him. The sounds of battle were getting closer, and for the first time in his violent career, he felt something he had never experienced before. Fear. "What are these creatures?" he whispered, his voice carrying a tremor that would have been unthinkable hours earlier. Dr. Lyra, despite her injuries and exhaustion, managed to speak. "They are the answer to our prayers. They are beings who understand that when innocent people call for help, you answer." The laboratory door exploded inward, and Commander Thompson stepped through the smoke and debris. He was still wearing his helmet, which gave him an intimidating, inhuman appearance. Behind him came a squad of Marines, their weapons trained on the surviving cracks. Razorcrest snarled and raised his claws, but Thompson moved with the reflexes of a predator born. His sidearm was in his hand and firing before the cracks could complete his attack. The alien warrior collapsed. His reign of terror finally ended. Thompson removed his helmet, revealing a surprisingly young face marked by concern rather than victory. "Are you the researchers who sent the distress signal?" Dr. Lyra nodded weakly, her forearms trembling with exhaustion and relief. You came for us. But why? We are strangers to you." Thompson knelt beside the injured Zephyrian, his voice gentle despite the violence that surrounded them. "Because you asked for help, ma'am, that's what we do." The rescue of the Zephyrian researchers took less than an hour once the Marines reached the underground laboratories. The survivors were treated by human medics and evacuated to the medical ships in orbit. The Cracks fleet, meanwhile, was being systematically destroyed by Captain Vasquez's battle group. Warlord Grimfang made one last attempt to rally his forces, but the humans showed no mercy to those who preyed upon the innocent. His flagship, the Bone Crusher, was reduced to expanding gas and debris by concentrated fire from 3 human dreadnoughts. Those crack ships that tried to flee found that human vessels were faster, their crews more skilled, and their weapons longer ranged. The few survivors who managed to escape carried with them a new and terrible knowledge. There was a species in the galaxy that would cross vast distances to protect strangers, and they were more dangerous than any predator the Cracks had ever encountered. In the aftermath of the battle, Dr. Lyra stood in the medical bay of the UES Retribution, receiving treatment for her injuries. Admiral Chen had come to check on the rescued researchers personally, something that surprised her with its simple humanity. "Your medical research," Chen said, his scarred face showing genuine concern. "Was any of it saved?" Dr. Lyra's large eyes brightened with hope. "Some of it, yes, but we lost so much. Years of work, irreplaceable specimens." "We'll help you rebuild," Chen said simply. "The galaxy needs healers like you, and it needs to know that there are people who will protect them." As the human fleet prepared to depart, carrying the Zephyrian survivors to safety, word of the rescue spread throughout the galaxy. The story of how an entire human civilization had mobilized to save 48 strangers became legend. On worlds throughout the galaxy, peaceful species looked up at the stars with new hope. They knew now that if the darkness came for them, there were beings who would answer their call for help. beings from a death world called Earth who had learned that strength without compassion was just cruelty. But compassion protected by strength could light up the universe. The Cracks horde was broken, its survivors scattered to the far edges of the galaxy where they lived in constant fear of human retribution. The researchers of the galaxy continued their work under the protection of humanity's ever-watchful fleet. And in the depths of space, human ships patrolled the trade routes and communication networks, listening for distress signals from those who could not protect themselves, because that was what humans did when someone called for help. They answered.